So welcome. I want to tell you about session block 307, the road to customer satisfaction, from service design to customer value. So if you want to do a roadmap, you came to the right session. Julie Moore is renowned. She's our industry expert on that. And I'm going to keep it short and sweet because I don't want to take away from her time. But if you want to be impressed, I say Google her. You will be blown away. She's president of Mind the Gap, but she's written so many books, articles, speaks around the world. So welcome, Julie, and thank you.
Thank you very much for that warm welcome. Okay, we tested this earlier. Is it loud enough now? You'd think I'm a noob, right? Actually, we were talking about this last night. This is my 15th year in a row at this conference, so I was shocked to count it up, yeah. So let me give you a little bit of background about this particular session. I have, the high certifications on IT service management, but most of my career was through service operations and working with customers. And a couple years ago, I was working with a fellow employee, and she started dabbling into something called customer experience management. And I started to wonder, wonder what that is, and I wonder what the value would be to look at customer experience management and its cross-section with IT service management. And that sent me on one of these journeys. Those of you who know me, I tend to get really heavy in the research for quite a while, and then I kind of come out of that and say, all right, what is it that's relevant out of that will be meaningful to you guys when I come to a conference? And I was talking to somebody today, and I said, there are some times when you do something and you just know it's really good. And probably out of all the presentations, this is one of my top 3 that I've ever done. I really like this presentation, and I like bringing in something like customer experience management and IT service management into this forum where you guys are focused on customer satisfaction. So it's more about having intentional relationships with your customer, designing those using a service lifecycle approach that really helps you to connect with your customers and make those more successful experiences. So the agenda for today is to define what customer experience management is so that we're on the same page. And then we're going to go through each stage of the service lifecycle and look at the way that the service lifecycle from an ITIL perspective can be used to help us with defining better customer experiences. So we'll go through each of these stages, and I can tell already this is not going to work out well because, hold on, give me just a second. There we go. That should work. All right. So what is customer experience management? As I began reading more and more about this, companies that do customer experience management really well because every single channel that you use to work with that customer has the same intentional experience. And the first company that comes to mind, and the fact that Steve Wozniak is here is just a great connection, is Apple. I've been an Apple advocate. I use Apple products. I've been on from the Apple IIe days. I work on PCs. I'm a programmer, but I love the interface of these products. And I have so for many years. And there's an intention in everything that they do. They may not, have as much market share, but they still have really well-designed products. The packaging that they come in, the whole experience about going to the mall and talking to somebody about tech support, that was like connecting with people where they go. I mean, the whole thing about this company is an intentional customer experience. And when we look at what we do in the support industry, and we look at what we're trying to do with service management is all about value, right? Value, balancing value with cost. And it defines value in so many different ways, right? Services that have the right level of utility and warranty that are providing the outcome that the customers are looking for. But we don't hear a lot about the customer and all that. We hear about the outcome and wanting to meet the needs of the customer, but we don't talk about engineering the customer experience, which I think is something that's missing. So the two of these things connect quite well. So customer experience management is defined as the process of strategically managing a customer's entire experience with a product or a company. So that means everything that interacts with your customer has to have the same look and feel, the same message, the same branding, so that when you decide what your company does and the way that you want to provide those services to your customer, it's intentional. So whether you're chatting with your customers, whether you're sending them emails, whether or not you're putting, a web portal out there, every single interaction is going to have the same look and feel. So what do we need to do? We need to engineer that experience for our customers, create a vision of what we want to provide, and be able to carry that vision through in the way that we market ourselves, the way that we train our people to deliver that. And a really important part of this is empowering people to make a difference, right? So if we engineer a process that empowers people to make a difference, can we expect that our customers are going to call us and have everything go right all the time? Right? Is that a fair assumption that we're not going to be able to do that? Our customers, when they pick up that phone to call us, are already in a bad mood, right? Something has gone wrong, and we can't help that. But what we can do is, from that point forward, change their perception of that and turn it into a positive experience. We can't get rid of the angst when they pick up the phone, but what we do from that point forward can be intentional. So one of the things that we have to do is start viewing what are our actions that we do while working with that customer that then begin to take that negative feeling and build on it so that they become even more unhappy as they go through the experience with us. And what can we empower people to do that will change that negative behavior into something a lot more positive? That's designing a customer experience that will change what they're feeling about our products and services and change it into something that's more positive. So we need a vision. We have to distinguish ourselves from our competitors. This is becoming even more important as IT becomes more optional. We start putting stuff into the cloud. We start putting things on apps and phones. Our people are getting smarter, right? So they become to look at the IT organization as not being as instrumental as it used to be in accomplishing their business objectives. So what do we have to do? We have to distinguish ourselves in new ways that make them see that we're not optional, that we have quality in the products and services that we deliver. So this is the roadmap of what we're going to look through. And for those of you who are ITIL savvy, you will notice the 5 stages of the service lifecycle. The first thing that we have to do is define what that experience is going to be. And we know that in service strategy, defining something means going and talking to our customers and figuring out what it is that they need. Then, based upon what we identify and our vision, we can then design intentional customer experience through all those interaction points. We implement it just like we would anything else, making sure we focus on process and tools and all the important aspects of delivering that. Then we turn it over to the operational environment where we have to have adequately trained staff on how to engage with that customer experience. And then, of course, measuring, monitoring, and continuing improving. So let's start with service strategy. Service strategy is the stage of the life cycle where if you look at service management, it's all about understanding our customers better, right? So why do your customers come to you in the first place? Not a rhetorical question. I am looking for an answer. Why do they come to you in the first place? They need service. They need help. They need solutions. Right? There is something that they're coming to us and they need. Now, I guarantee you that everybody in this room, you'll do some things that are in common with the people sitting next to you, but you're going to be providing unique products and services within your company to your customers. So we need to fully understand why they need our services. What is it they're calling about? What types of requests do they need? How can we provide better services, more enhanced services? What defines value to our customers when they're coming to us at the service desk? Right? So helping us to better understand the customer, what's important to the business, what's important to the customers, what defines success is a really important input into understanding how to design something to meet those customer expectations. So if we look at customer experience management, it's about getting insight into the customer's world. From an IT context, this is where we begin looking at what do they need for support, right? What type of services do they need, and what defines end user satisfaction when they're using those services? When we look at the customer experience, analyze the social cultural context, develop an understanding of their wants and needs. From an IT perspective, we have to be working along with the business to see how they use these products and services within the business processes to better enable their success. Right? It's one thing to create quality services. It's another thing to empower the end users to use them as successfully as they can within their business processes. This is what they're trying to do. They don't want to become IT experts. They want to do their job the best that they can. And so the more that we understand about how they use those products and services, the more likely we are to align what we provide with what they need. So according to Gartner, organizations must begin to evaluate the customer service as a competitive weapon and make appropriate investments in infrastructure, culture, people, and processes. So that's part of our scope of what we try to define in strategy. What's the culture? How many of you work in a fund company? Okay, so I'd say about 10 people held their hands up. Of those 10 people, what do you like the most about your job every day? I'm sorry, you're going to have to shout. The people you work with. Guess what? Most of our customers tell us that the quality of service comes from what? The quality of people that answer the phone, right? It's not uncommon that they will say they get good customer service because the people that answer the phone are the people that they like working with. So that's not an uncommon characteristic that we would find in that environment. So when we talk about designing a culture, we want a culture that our customers feel good about calling us, that it's not the last thing that they do because they couldn't find a solution off of Google or they couldn't, tackle somebody in the lunchroom and grab an answer. It's because they see value in what we provide and they enjoy working with us. That's a cultural change for many of us because we're answering the phone repetitively, we're trying to smile over the phone, we're trying to provide good customer service, but yet sometimes we have an environment that just doesn't create that environment that a customer will want to call. So we have to create a culture and environment, look at the infrastructure. Tools are important. We know that if tools don't support the process effectively, it impacts the way that the customer views the services that we provide. These tools should work. They should be integrated effectively. So the keys to this success, one of the things we need to do is really understand the customer's view of IT. And the only way to really do that is through a benchmark survey. How many of you do benchmark surveys on an annual basis? Okay, so these are the more lengthy type of questionnaires where we're really covering a lot of aspects of the relationship between the customer and the IT organization. If we can engineer a really good survey, a lot of that information feeds into the... Okay, who's messing with me out there? It's going to take a lot more than that to rock me, okay? We need to be able to use that information coming into the strategy to fully understand what our customers define as valuable. That's a huge, very important input. The business strategy, understanding and knowing what the company itself is trying to do, what's their future look like, because we want to be there and support that. If we know and understand what's important to the business, then when that customer calls in and they're frantic about something that they're trying to do because of their job that's moving them towards that future state, and we respond appropriately, they're going to have greater confidence in us. But we have to know what's important to the business and what they're facing within their strategic view. Cost analysis, of course, is pretty important. Our service is an overhead cost. And when the business looks at it and they start to think about trimming costs, what do they first want us to do? Do what? Cut it down how? Cutting people, right? Because they see the number of people and they equate that to, oh, you're spending a lot more money than what we see coming out of the value, so let go of a few people. We have to be able to show and demonstrate that value. So when we begin to engineer an experience that's better, we have to understand what is the cost of providing it today, and what are we going to do, and how is that going to relate to cost in the future. Also important to interview key stakeholders. Surveys are one thing. Sitting down with those vital business functions and having a one-on-one conversation, you would be surprised what people are unwilling to put down on a document, but they have no problems talking to you about. So getting the dialogue going into this is a really important part of building an understanding of our customers. So if we look at kind of the way that all of this stuff works together, our technology provides some of the experience that we provide. Our processes provide some of that experience. They're interfacing with request fulfillment, incident management, possibly through some sort of a web portal. And then our organization and our people are very critical. So these three things together are what our customers are seeing as the service performance, right? The people, the tools, the processes. But we know that that drives customer satisfaction, but it also helps to improve business performance. We have a very vital role in helping business performance. Quantifying that and understanding that and being able to prove it to the business is what we have to get better at. And of course, if we have a customer experience that's engineered, they see the value every time they interact with us. We don't necessarily have to prove it as much. All right, so part of the feedback that I've gotten on this presentation in the past is there were no examples in it. So there are examples in this now. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them. I'm hoping that you can download the presentation and read through them. But one of the things you have to do with this benchmark survey is really engineer it appropriately. You want to be asking the right questions. And typically when you go through a benchmark survey, there are a lot of different people that want questions answered. And so the ones that you may think are important get pushed aside with other questions that might need to be asked. So be very careful. You want to get a full view of the customer experience of what they want, what they need, what they're experiencing today in order to use that as input into the strategy. So we need a formal survey. Make sure that the survey, there are ways to ask questions that skew the results. I'm not really good at doing the design of the surveys. If you want help with that, there's a guy here named Fred Benecom that does great with the survey stuff. But accuracy is really important. If we're going to make decisions based upon what we put in these surveys, we have to make sure that we're asking the questions in the right way, that we get valid results so that those can be used. You guys know this because we do transactional surveys. If you don't get enough return, you can't really make judgment calls on that information to support decision making because it's just not a broad enough sample. So here are kind of the areas that I have worked with companies to develop these benchmark surveys. The areas are customer information about their usage, the hours that they're using the services, when they need support, the basic stuff around making our service available when they need it with the right levels of services. Communication is another important part. We want to get a better understanding of how we communicate. Are we communicating the right information? Is it enough? Is it at the right time? Are we oversaturating our customers with what we provide? Of course, customer satisfaction, demographics, their support needs being much more specific around incident management, availability of services, and then some open-ended questions that allow some dialogue back with us. Those have to be manually reviewed, but sometimes we get some really good information just from those open-ended questions. So that's just one of the improvements that I've made to this and some of the areas that you might want to consider around that annual benchmark survey. So as part of the strategy, the survey, the strategy review, interviewing your key stakeholders, doing a cost analysis. That's what's important to do up front. Now that we understand what the business needs and what defines value to them, now we need to design an experience that's intentional to provide the value that they're looking for. So service design is the stage of the life cycle where we figure out how we're going to do something. We've determined what we need to do in service strategy. Now it's really important for us to execute on that. So what kind of things would we consider in the design? It is after lunch. I'm making sure you guys are still here with me. What goes into a design? Okay, stakeholders. What do our stakeholders need? What else? Methods, standard design methods, yes. We have to design to the outcome. Who knows the 5 aspects of service design? My ITIL people in the room. We have to design the service, the tools, the architecture, measurement, and process. That's what we take into account when we're thinking about designing a service. Well, guess what? The same exact thing applies here, right? The service. We have to design the way that we're providing customer service. We have to look at the tools and the way that our tools interact with our customers, creating a consistent customer experience. Look at the way that these fit within our architecture, right? Making sure that these tools are integrated, that they're simple for our customers to use. We need to design our measurements. If we're going to be successful, we have to be able to measure that success. So as part of the design, we want to look at what measurements are we going to need. And probably the most important thing to us that we always think about is designing the process. How can I change the process? But it's really all of these things that we have to look at as part of an intentional design to meet our customer needs. So the customer experience, we want experiential features and product aesthetics. So how does this apply to us in IT? Right? You can see where an Apple product might have a series of features or aesthetics. But from an IT context, we want a high level of customer satisfaction by design. Right? That means we're looking at our processes, how we handle incident management. Right? We answer the phone, we're documenting stuff into a ticketing system, we're using a knowledge base, we're asking our customers questions. How do we better manage that situation? What can go wrong on a call? Just give me a couple things. I know there's like an ocean out there, but what can go wrong?
You don't have the right answers to the client list.
You don't have the answers, and so you escalate. Worse than that, it falls into a black hole and the customer's unhappy. Right? So how do we design an experience that doesn't happen anymore? Right? Looking at the way that we use knowledge. How do we better incorporate knowledge into the support process? What else? You don't capture enough information before you send the ticket elsewhere. So if that's one of the potential errors that can go wrong, what do? We have to work with the support partners to make sure that we're asking the right questions when we do escalate something so that these things are populated within the ticket. So when we look at the things that can go wrong, and this is a really powerful exercise, is to call up one of your customers that is really unhappy and ask them to walk you through what happened during that customer experience. And believe me, they will have no trouble telling you. But as they walk through this experience, you will recognize, oh, here's a mistake that we made, and what could we have done at that moment that our customer was most unhappy that would have changed their perception of that event and made them happier? Right? The escalations. Some of the things that we do are provide them the ticket number, give them an expectation on the SLA of when someone will get back to them, right? Some of those things are really important to managing the customer's expectations when we escalate, but what else can we do? This is where we get into the empowerment that when you're on the phone with the customer and you can tell this isn't going the right way, you have corrective actions that you can take at that time that help to mitigate their negative response. And I'm not talking about, oh, I'm going to put your name in for a free iPod raffle or something like that. It's not always about giving something away to make them happy. It's about ownership and accountability of that customer experience. That you know all you're looking to do is to take them from where they are right now in the negative and move them closer to the positive. Because by the end of that experience, if we've solved their issue and we've done this in a professional way, where we haven't let them down, they're going to be happy about it. Customers expect things to break, right? It's not going to be always on, always available. We think things are going to break. It's the way that we handle these as a professional services organization that changes our customer experience and makes them unhappy with the way that we provide services. So we have to look at all of our customer touch points, web, email, phone, marketing materials, the way that we ask the scripts. How many of you call your cable company and you know immediately you are on a script? And all you want to do is, please send me the supervisor, please send me the supervisor. I do IT for a living, please send me the supervisor, right? Because you know you cannot move them off the script. Sometimes we need to empower that person on the other end of the phone. They know, I know the answer, but I have to do this script because I've been told that if I don't do the script, right, there's got to be a little bit of flexibility there to know that by sticking on that script, you are totally frustrating that customer on the other end of the phone. Right? We do these things sometimes to create intentional experiences, but we end up creating negative intentional experiences. We have to look at all of our processes and create customer experience maps. So again, this is another quote. The foundation of any successful customer service organization is empowered customer service agent. Having the intelligence to make empowered decisions when you are interacting with that customer to change that from a negative experience to a positive experience. All right, so what are we going to do? We're going to launch a service improvement plan that's going to look at designing what are our critical success factors, what are our processes going to look like, what types of transactional surveys are we going to be using in the environment, looking at the supporting technology, creating an intentional communication plan that meets the image and the vision of what we want to provide to the business. We have to, what are we going to do with that information? One of the things, I don't know about you, but I'm saturated with customer satisfaction surveys. I get them all the time. And I will tell you that it's very rare now that I fill them in, just because I don't see anything ever being done with the information. If I saw some tangible results, I would continue to provide the feedback. But if I don't ever see that you create a plan and implement and engage and communicate back with me that you've done something with that, I'm not likely to give you information unless I am really angry, right? How many of you will provide feedback when you've had a really bad experience? So that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's great for helping us define the customer experience and ironing things out. But we also want to know when we do things well. And unfortunately, because we ask all the time and we don't show some sort of an improvement plan as a result, customers get tired of it. We're saturated with this stuff. So what are we going to do with the information that we get from the satisfaction survey? We need a marketing plan. How many of you were eagerly waiting for the iPhone 5? How many of you give it up, were sleeping on the cement, waiting for these things? And Mark, you can't raise your hand. I know you were on the in crowd with that. Right? There are things that we get excited about. And part of what we have to do as an IT organization is get much better at marketing ourselves. When we go through creating intentional customer experiences, we need to let our customers know that this is what we're doing and why we're doing it and the value that we want to create. We're listening to you. Nothing really gets their attention more than telling them, we're really listening. We want to have an intentional relationship with you. We want to provide greater value. So we want a marketing plan that takes into account that extended vision of what we want to do to create change and begins to proactively communicate how they will experience things different, intentionally. Okay? And then, of course, to back it up, we have to train our agents to be able to provide this new intentional experience, because it's not just about smiling and being pleasant on the phone. It's about empowering them to make decisions. And so if you do not have a staff today that are empowered to make choices during that customer experience to make a difference, then we're going to have to help educate them on the things that they can do. So what improves a customer experience? Interestingly enough, what's the highest ranking thing up there? Well-trained people. And we know this. We know if we've got good people answering the phone, we know the quality of service is going to be better. Loyalty. What drives loyalty? Excellent service and? What's the top one up there? Better products and services are going to make our customers happy. Duh. Right? If we provide them a better quality product, they're not calling us as often. But when they do have to call us, if we have quality people with high quality interactions, guess what? They keep coming back. So when you look at what we can do to change this, it comes down to our people doing the right things on the phone, working with them, can completely change their perception of us as an IT provider. No doubt. All right, so there are 4 things that we need to define within the customer experience: our communication plan, our customer satisfaction plan, a marketing plan, and customer service training. Now, this is a typical process map, right? We've probably all seen these things, maybe not with so much color and little icons and stuff. I get a little crazy with these things. This is a typical customer experience for the beginning of the incident management process, right? So we have our customer, they experience a problem, they stop, they call this. Oh, really? That's 2. They call the service desk, they hit the ACD, they get that broadcast message, we get them into skills-based routing, right, and they come in to get the first available tech. So how can we look at this experience from a customer experience management perspective? This is a customer experience map. What essentially you do is you take those same exact steps and you brainstorm. When our customers experience a problem and they call the service desk, what can happen at that point that can take their negative experience and make it worse, or what can make it better? How many of you like the IVR systems that you call at travel agents or any place else? Do we like these things? I think within about 30 seconds I'm pushing 0. If that doesn't work, I'm trying 9, maybe 1. You know, I mean, it's frustrating when you hit multiple levels of these IVRs. Well, if we don't like them, do you think our customers like them? So here I am. My iPhone has just died, and I'm going to a meeting, and I have something on here. I got to take it. I call the service desk, and press 1 if you're calling about hardware or software. 1, 1, 1. You know, you're like, who's got time to go through 12 layers of an IVR to finally get to a human being? So when we look at that initial experience, they can't access their email. They go to self-service because we told them we built this great self-service portal. Go to it, right? Oh, that's okay. I get there. It looks good, but I can't find a solution. I'm not happy again, right? So we see what can happen during that customer experience that provides value and what can take it away. And you know those multi-level IVRs definitely can make our customers unhappy. So it's no doubt when they get to us finally on the phone, they're like, right? Because we've just put them through many hoops before they could actually talk to a person. Now we know why we do this, right? Because it's do not pick up my business card afterwards. We do this because it's cheaper, but it doesn't necessarily provide value. So knowing that we've done this to minimize the cost, what can we do at that point when they do get through that multi-level IVR and they finally get to a person? Right? Because we know we're doing these things to help reduce costs. But at the same time, we need to be able to change those negative experiences. So when you look at these things, look at the positive influencers to this part of the process. Phone number is handy. They get a warm greeting. We have a knowledge base. We have a status page, right? These are kind of important things. Multi-channel support, self-support priority for those really important customers. Specialized support, routed to the best analysts. We're conveying a smile. We're doing active listening. These are things that can positively influence this. The things that can negative, issues with the service. First of all, that's out of our control. Where do I go for help? They don't know. They don't know who to call, right? These are the things that can negatively influence. So it's a brainstorming exercise about what happens during our process that can negatively influence our customer and what we can do to intentionally change that negative experience into a positive. Some of these factors will be completely in our control and some of them will be completely out of our control. But our ultimate goal is to ensure that when that customer hits the end of that experience, that they feel good about the outcome. We cannot control all the negative things that are going to happen, but we can move them towards a positive thing by the end. And trust me when I tell you, if I hear one more person apologize to me on the phone about something, this is being way overdone. Have you guys been through one of these? Oh, I'm very sorry that happened. Oh, I'm sorry that happened. And you know it's not sincere in any way. They've said, I'm sorry about 12 times and they still haven't done anything that's going to help you. Right? It needs to be an intentional and a sincere customer experience. And of course, we need these transactional surveys. How many of you do transactional surveys? Okay, usually about 5 questions. Right? And you're asking specific questions about the transactional nature of interacting with your customer. So you might have to go back and readdress what questions you're asking. Because if you are intentional in your experience, your goal is to make sure they're happy by the end of that experience. So what we may ask may be slightly different. Right? So we have to really mirror this survey into what we're trying to accomplish within this newly designed process. Asking questions about how the tools are integrated, asking them how successful these tools are helping them in self-service, the things that we are intending within there. So being able to get this information that's meaningful to improving this is going to be very important. And again, here are some questions over the years that I've put into transactional surveys. Notice that a lot of them still say help desk. That should show you how long ago that I've been completely brainwashed like the rest of you to call it a service desk now. But they're still relevant, right? So we have to choose what we want to ask our customers, and it needs to be part of that intentional design. All right, so that's what goes into our design stage. Now we need to validate that. So the transition stage of the life cycle is all about implementation. So if we've designed our tools to have a different experience, we need to implement that. We need to test those experiences having customers go in and interact with the self-service, use the knowledge base, make sure that they're getting a consistent look and feel across the different technologies, go through sample calls, try the process, listen in on staff as they're taking phone calls to see if they're empowered to do these things, if they're challenged, or whether they need additional training. So we're building it, implementing it, testing that it works, and then if everything goes well, it's then turned over to the operational staff. So from an IT context, this means we're looking at our face-to-face interactions, because these are going to happen. Despite us trying to hide ourselves in the basement of building 3, clear off the rest of the campus, they run into us from time to time. So we need to empower agents of how they're going to handle those experiences, because that's an intentional designed experience. It should be something where we're empowering them to help manage that. I can tell you from my experience as a tech support person many years ago, I don't know that I handled those well. I'm on my way to lunch. Excuse me, but I'm not doing tech support right now. I have to eat like the rest. You know what I mean? And it's the way that you manage that. Giving them and empowering them with responses. Oh, absolutely, it'd be great to help you. I'm going to go to lunch. I'll have to call you back in about an hour. Does that work? Being able to empower them with what is the appropriate response, because we know these face-to-face interactions are going to happen. And of course, we have desktop support. They're going to be going there. How do you handle that relationship when you're face-to-face with the customer? Our e-service or web portals, the telephony system messages. I'm not so sure I'm really liking the people that design these things. Sometimes they're very long and you just can't seem to get to the end before you want to push a button. So we have to be careful in the way that we're designing it. And of course, we're carrying through our experience into that. So for example, the systems are great that tell you you're the 10th caller out of 15. We're expecting maybe a 15-minute wait, right? That empowers. It gives the customer information. They know that they can call back if they want to later, if they can't wait around. It may not make them happy, but at least they're not sitting there for 15 minutes going, I'm wondering how long this is going to take, because that tends to have a more negative experience. But during that time, what can we communicate to them during that 15 minutes? Okay, what else? System outages, what else? New features. I like that. You know why? Because I have this really cool marketing plan where I want to tell my customers all about the wonderful things that we are doing for the IT organization. Did you know that we're launching this new service in September? Training will be available August, whatever. Conveying what we're doing while they're unhappy on the phone of the things that we are doing that are positive. Why not? I don't know about you, but I've heard the women from Ipanema or whatever that song is so many times, I don't even want to ever hear it again. It's like drilled, but what is it? Ding, 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 ding. You guys know the one I'm talking about, right? Why music? Why not market something that's meaningful, that shows them the value that we're providing? That's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. So structure our content and style of that information in an effective way that continues to carry forth what our vision is of the value that we're going to provide those customers. Okay, another quote. IT organizations of every shape and size continue to struggle with aligning IT service support with the expectations of the business, reduce costs, provide high-end user satisfaction, and streamline processes. If this were easy to do, I wouldn't be here, and you wouldn't be here. This is going to take time. You're going to have to really look at the way that you interact and design this into your interactions. And to do it cost effectively is even more of a challenge. But I guarantee you, when you provide quality service, it's usually streamlined, right? We're taking out as much wasted time of non-productivity for our customers as we possibly can. So it will eventually pay off. So what do we do here? We're going to implement that service improvement plan, implement the process, the tools, implement our communication plan, our satisfaction measurement, our marketing, and test all those customer interfaces to make certain they're working and that our customers are perceiving these interactions as valuable. That was unintended. All right. Develop and maintain a differentiated point of view. So from a customer's perspective, what differentiates support?
Whether or not the problems are resolved.
Problem is resolved. What else? We call those incidents now. What else? Quick, right? We get the correct answer quickly. What else? Preventing it in the future. That's something that even if we do these two things, if it's the 6th time they've called in the last month about this issue, it doesn't matter how good we give the response or how quickly, they're not going to be happy, right? So the repetitive issues is important as well. What else?
Personal.
Personal. We all like the more personal experience, right? There's no doubt when someone knows who we are, and that's really hard to do. As soon as we centralize services into a single point of contact, we begin to lose that one-on-one contact with our customers. So what kind of things could we be tracking in our incident management system that would lend itself to a more personal relationship? Oh, bugger that. That's not important. I don't care if you know how many times I called last week. But what if you had 2 kids? Right? How are they doing? We track all this information in this ticketing system and we can't track anything about who our customers are and what's important to them? Why not? It's just a couple additional fields. We may not do trend analysis on it, right? We're going to do trend analysis on multiple calls, of course, but providing personal experiences, making it real to the customer. We don't know everybody after we centralize. It's hard to know everybody, but we can track little tidbits. When you call service desks over in India, they will often have names like Fred, right? And they'll talk to you and say, so do you have a dog, right? And you're like, oh, that's kind of an odd question. Yes, I have a dog. But they're kind of things that even though we're frustrated with calling and we get someone in India, it's kind of cute. So we can kind of take that and say, what can we do to intentionally provide a personalized customer experience? So some of that repeat information is about previous calls because we need to know that, because if they are repeating calling on the same thing, we want to make a difference and we want to make that go away. But at the same time, why not track other information about our customers? And it doesn't have to be anything more than, this person likes to be called Jules instead of Julie, right? So then, oh, hey, Jules, how's it going? That sounds completely different from, hey, Mrs. Moore, how are you doing today, right? It's personalized, figuring out a way to do that. Creating a differentiated experience, communicate powerfully and consistently. One of the things I get really frustrated with is when you get one of these spam emails that tells you about some sort of a service outage on a service that you don't even use. Who cares? But you get these messages and they distract from the value of the communication that you get that you do need to know. So we are tracking services and the customers that are using those services. If a service goes down, our messages should be targeted to that user population, only informing those people that need to know. So being able to develop that into a communication plan means that we're going to be more effective and more powerful in our communications. So there's a lot of things that go into this, but providing an intentional experience is what the customer experience management is all about. Now, don't forget, quality assurance is a really important part about this. As we begin re-engineering an experience with a customer, it's going to seem like a lot of things are changing. The one thing that we don't want to do is disrupt the service to the point where the customers are unhappy with it. Subtle changes are usually pretty good versus all out, some system-wide systematic change. If you're providing good service today, it's about the little incremental, the value adds that you're providing that really begin to shine to your customers that say, wow, they begin to see these things. Of course, we're marketing them as well. If you're providing poor customer service today and you're being beaten up by your satisfaction surveys, being able to take some low-hanging fruit and begin to develop something into that. The key is that this is intentional. It is something that we want to design and implement that's leveraging those value propositions for our customers. All right, so now we're delivering this newly designed customer experience. What does that mean? What happens when we roll something out to our customers? What's important to the success of that? They need to know it's coming. We need to educate them. It needs to work. Thank you, that was really good. What else? Our people have to be ready for this. And all too often we get, announcement that something's being rolled out and we're the last to know. And so we need to be very well prepared to engage in this customer experience. And that's what the service operational stage is about. We need to deliver on those promises. We actually need to create the value that we're communicating to our customers, and we have to make sure that they're happy with what we're providing. So this means identifying their needs, ensuring high customer satisfaction, building trust, being an advocate for the customer throughout the IT organization, engaging in those cultural changes, and never forget that ultimately we need to create value for the business. That's what our intention is through this newly engineered experience. So this This was a prediction back in 2011. A battle will break out between IT and the lines of business over who really owns the user interface. Why do you think that is? Why do you think the IT and the business are going to start arguing over who owns that experience? They're the ones forced to use it and using it, but why else?
They want more control, more say.
Possibly. Possibly. Absolutely. Here was business and here was IT. And everything in the business now is what? On IT systems. It is very hard for us to separate the business from IT. Name a manual business process today in your organization. What do you do that doesn't involve technology? Not very much. And so this is the reason why we're having the fight over who owns that experience, because it's so embedded into what we do that it's kind of hard to pull IT outside of that. And I advocate that this is a good thing that we're fighting over this, because we should really be acting as one entity. We're no longer a separate business unit. We are the business. They can't do anything without us, essentially. So the fact that they're fighting over who owns that experience, hallelujah, let's do it together, right? We shouldn't be fighting, oh no, we own it, oh no, we own it, oh no, we own it, right? Let's empower our organization to own this customer interface and do it right. All right, so what do we do here? We need good, solid leadership to drive this, because you know as well as I do, any type of change initiative needs good, solid sponsorship throughout IT, and also those business advocates, the ones that help to be part of the process of talking to us about things that do go wrong and how that impacted their business processes. We need a customer advocacy team. Someone that's championing the change, that's measuring and using this information, using the marketing plan, and really going out there and presenting what we're doing to our customers. Manage the process, solicit feedback, look for improvements, and of course, work closely with continual service improvement. So one of the most important things that we've talked about so far is what makes the difference in a support experience. People, right? So as part of the ongoing operational environment, part of our design has to be doing what? Recruiting, training, hiring, and retaining those people that have the right skills that can drive this intentional customer experience. So once it's implemented, we just have to have the right people to do the work. And we all know that. The really good quality people help to drive change within the organization. The advocacy team can help with looking for new ways to solve problems that come out of this, replacing products, crediting accounts, you know, how customers will complain and we want to do something to kind of placate them, whatever we can do in our environment, end user training, and proactive communication. Leadership, it's all about organizational change. They're going to help us to define the vision of what the new intentional experience will look like. They'll help to communicate. That is so 3 strikes, I'm telling you right now. Managing the implementation, making sure we have the right success criteria. This is kind of funny. And then communicating throughout the organization. Now, those are the parts of delivering the experience. Managing it, delivering it, getting feedback, using that feedback to understand what we need to improve. Of course, we're very capable of tracking the incidents that we're engaging with our customers. But we need to look at how successful that designed experience manages those expectations. I love doing the customer experience mapping. It's one of my most favorite things to do, to sit down with really unhappy customers and say, tell me what went wrong. Because it is such a powerful experience to hear from a customer's point of view all the things that went wrong and just the subtle changes that we could have made throughout the process that could have made a very big difference. All right, so the last part about this is continual improvement. We're almost at the point where the presentation is over. I want to make sure that I leave enough time for questions. But we all know that measuring now what we have implemented in the environment is really important to understanding the success of this project. When you look at all the customer interaction points, all the different channels, being able to measure success across those different channels is already sometimes a challenging experience. Knowing how successful knowledge management is, we don't always get the great metrics for that. Knowing how successful the e-services that we provide, password resets, those kind of things, That all goes into understanding and managing all the different channels and looking at the way that our customer experience has made the difference. That means we have to have the right types of measurement. It may not be what we're measuring today, like are you happy with the service that we provided, but looking at the different ways in which we're delivering and asking very pointed questions on the way that we delivered that service to understand if what we have done has had an intentional result to improve the customer satisfaction. All right, so that's it for me from today. Those are the 5 stages. I want to make sure that we have enough time for question and answers. Wow, I could just go backwards and we could go back through the slides. No questions? Seriously? Come on, people.
What are some of the things that you've seen to help drive response?
To drive response meaning what?
Drive response to your service.
Doing something with the information. Seriously, that's the most powerful way to get people to continue to provide feedback. If they see that the feedback is actually making a difference. We used to follow up with surveys that were below a certain number. And the customers that we would follow up with, yeah, that was great. But, you know, going and talking to them was one thing. Following back up with them a couple months later and saying, this is what happened as a result. We made changes, and this is not going to happen again, and we want to let you know. That's a very powerful thing for a customer to see. Not only that you asked them about it, but that you took the time to do something with that information. That's really important, because we measure stuff all the time. But how often do we take the time to actually show our customers what we do with that information? That's a completely different picture.
How do you reach the other customers then? Because that's typically the one that's giving feedback. So the next time they'll probably give the feedback again. And I'm sure they'll be talking to others, but that is still not getting it out there to the rest of them.
The marketing plan, right? Marketing to our customers that we're making changes, that we are listening, that those survey results, we're acting upon them. We've been interviewing customers and going out and understanding how we're providing that service. And here are some of the changes that we've made. It's just like anything. You know, we may ask for information from our customers and they may be, you know, I'm disinterested in providing that feedback. And that may happen for a period of time. And especially if we've been measuring it for a really long time and haven't done anything with it. So those marketing channels, the things that we have, when they're sitting in those multi-level IVRs, swimming around, communicating great information about what we are doing. Hey, we didn't do so well in this area, but we've listened to your feedback and here are the changes. Please let us know if you have noticed a difference or if there's still other aspects of delivering that service that we need to improve. We have to show them that we closed the loop because they don't see it any other way, and therefore they're reluctant to fill out the surveys. I am.
Have you seen companies will give advice to be transparent in that? So actually showing the results that you're getting back. So people probably don't have that feedback or are not giving that feedback.
So the question is around transparency and how much we should show our customers about what we're doing. I think it's like with anything. A little bit of information can be very powerful. Over-communicating can drown the message. So it's really about picking the right information to communicate at the right level to our customers. The unique part about the customer service experience is that our customers are more likely to listen to that than they are to listen to availability targets and, you know, we've been able to improve service level agreements. That's blah, 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 blah. But this is really meaningful. This is about we care about you. We're taking the extra steps to make the service that we provide to you more meaningful. If we talk about this in customer outcomes and things that are important to our customers with their language, we're more likely to get, you know, a warm, fuzzy feedback from them and feel more part of the process than if we do the geek speak. And I think that's a significant challenge and why our customers don't always listen. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about how we can show value to the business?
How can we show value to the business? You should have been in my pre-conference workshop, which was all about showing value to the IT. No, first of all, understanding what value is to our customers is really important because we may think we know what value is, and we may go through this whole intentional design of what we want to give our customers. When we look up at these charts that I showed you, the bottom line is pretty simple. Well-educated, quality people answering the phone is what they're telling us is important, right? So being able to communicate value to them means being able to show what's important to them. We are managing to deliver that towards you. Now, there's a couple things about that. If you look at it from an ITIL perspective, ITIL tells you utility and warranty to provide value. So what does that mean from a service desk perspective? Utility means, do we do what we're supposed to do, and do we do it well? Right? So how many calls are we taking? How many are we solving on first contact? These are metrics that are about the utility. Does the service desk provide a service that they want? The warranty aspects are around availability, capacity, continuity, and security. So that's the performance of the service desk. So it's not just what do we functionally do for you, it's how well do we perform those tasks. So if I look at that from my perspective, communicating value from a customer experience is not going to be how many calls we took and how many we solved on first contact. It's going to be really tied to customer satisfaction, because I know that solving these things on first contact is important, but my customers have to view that as important, right? They have to see that this resolution was delivered in a timely manner. They felt good about that experience, because it's important for them to call back. So I think there's a much more heavy emphasis on the quality aspects of the service and what's meaningful to the customer versus the typical types of metrics that we might have to be accountable for in an SLA. Right, so it's got to be well-rounded, but much more focused on the customer having a quality experience. And that, to me, is valuable. If that's what I'm trying to do, an intentional customer experience, I need metrics that talk about how have my customers noticed a difference, and are they seeing that experience more positively? Yes, ma'am. How many questions are appropriate in a transactional survey versus an annual survey? I look at it from a time perspective. I don't want my customers having to answer more than a couple questions, maybe a minute and a half to 2 minutes. Otherwise, they're just, I don't know about you, but as soon as I get into page 3 of a survey, I'm done. Okay? It doesn't matter if you're United Airlines, the school that I take classes from, or whatever. As soon as I have to hit next too many times, I'm done. I just don't have the time. It may be valuable to them, but it's not valuable to me. So transactional surveys usually have around 5 questions. And they don't always have to be the same 5 questions. They could be 5 questions that are targeted towards whatever you're designing in your intentional change. You measure that for a while, see if it's made a difference, and then as you go move on to something else, you pick another 5. The annual surveys are usually the ones where we're going to ask the 5 or 6 pages worth of questions. We just have to get an overall view of the relationship. But we communicate and prepare the customer for this and help them to understand, listen, once a year we need more detailed information for us to continue to provide a quality service. So these are the ones that may get into the 30 or 40 questions, very targeted questions from a cross-functional group of IT that all have things they want to know how the customer is doing. But even so, I would follow it up with going into each business unit and sitting down with them and having, tea and biscuits if we have to, and just sit there and talk with them about the way that we're providing the service. Yes, sir.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said recruit the right people. That's always been the most challenging thing for me, is to get the right mix of technical ability and somebody that has sort of strong innate customer service skills. Any advice on that?
So the question is around how do we recruit for the right skill balance of what's needed? And it's a more complex question than you think. First of all, it starts with what are the services we provide? If we don't know what services we provide, then we can't possibly know what skill sets we need. So we understand our products and services. We come up with a skill analysis of what skills are necessary for all of those products and services. And then we have to understand what level of skill is needed at the service desk, right? If we've got experts out there that are going to be escalation points, then maybe we're just logging and doing a couple things with a knowledge base, but we don't have to have advanced technical knowledge. So getting a really good picture of the skills that are required is the first step. The second thing of this is looking at the staff that we have today. Being able to look at them and say, do you feel qualified to answer questions across all of these products and services at this level? So that we can get these individuals the training that are necessary to bridge the gap. Okay, so just addressing what we have today. If we do that and we build good, solid career plans, we'll keep people, which is the first part of that. The second part of that is when I go out recruiting, and this was one of those things, You know, I tested people under different circumstances. I wanted them to take sample phone calls. So I had written scripts for people that were antagonizing them on the other end of the phone. Funny, but antagonizing them. It wasn't meant to be the most stressful interview they've ever had, but at the same time, I wanted to see how they would respond under an unusual circumstance. Can they keep their cool? Can they laugh when laughter is appropriate? Those are the kind of things I want to look for, because you may be the most technical person on the planet, but if you can't talk to my customers and relate to them, that's a really difficult match. So being able to put them in a common situation like they would have in the work environment is important. And you can design that. You can take a typical customer experience that you've mapped out and walk them through that and ask them, what would you do at this point? And if their response is, I'd escalate it to this group, I don't own it, right? You know that's not the right fit. So you want to recruit for people that are already thinking about, what are my options when a customer is unhappy? What should I do? I should own this, and I should be accountable for the outcome. And that's where you see they're bringing in the professional side, they're bringing in the customer service side, and they're integrating it well with the technical. But we don't tend to really do that very often, where we're challenging them through phone calls and having them get into situations where they're challenged with stuff. And I can tell you that people that interviewed with me will tell you it was the most nerve-wracking thing they've ever been put through. But I know that when I hired them, that they could handle that situation, because guess what? It's not an easy job. You're going to be under that kind of situation every day. If you can't do it as a job interview, how are you going to do it in real life? So I say challenge them in some stimulating conversations on phone calls. And of course, the people that work there love doing it. They're like, oh, can I do it this time? Let me torture the newbie, right? But that's my best advice. The technical skills we can inventory. That special mix only comes through when you put them in a situation where they're answering phone calls. All right, I think we're done, since half of you have getting up and leaving. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful afternoon.